Ida, and see, Ellen told me to do that. And from staff, Wendy Hayes, and where is he? Anyway, that's everybody. I'm just pulling up the agenda here. Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda for this? Go ahead, sorry.
I just wanted to add one late item here.
Okay, I'm sorry, yeah.
And that's just a verbal report on the storm over the weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
We knew that was coming.
Motion to approve? Did you put your hand up, Ron?
Ron and Ellen.
Very good, thank
Motion
you.
second.
All right. Are there any declarations, conflicts of interest or anything? No, I don't believe so. All righty. And the minutes of the March 14th meeting, that the minutes of the Salmon Beach Committee meeting held on March 14th, 2024 be adopted. Thank you, Ron and Ellen. Appreciate it. Next is the presentation, Solid Waste Management Plan Engagement presentation by Paulo. Is Paulo here?
Paulo is here, but
we're
actually putting in our project lead, which is Jody Frank, who's on another screen. So I will hand off to her.
Okay. Tony Frank. Jody.
Hello. All right. Just give me one quick second. There we go. All right. So hello, my name is Jody Frank. I am the Solid Waste Project Coordinator and Project Lead for the ACRD Solid Waste Management Plan. I would also like to take a moment just to acknowledge that the subject matter of my presentation today represents the communities of the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District, which are located on the traditional territories of the Nuu-chah-nulth people. I am presenting actually on the traditional territories of the Coast Salish people over in Victoria. So I'll acknowledge these lands that I'm on as well. We respectfully acknowledge that these traditional territories exist, and we are so thankful for the opportunity to live, work, and learn here. So with mutual respect, Isak, and appreciation, Claco, Claco. Thank you. All right, so the intention of my presentation today is to go over the solid waste management plan and explain exactly what a solid waste management plan is, to provide you with the background, to really set the stage and to highlight what has been completed to date, and then take you through the draft strategies, the actions, the proposed goals and targets, and really provide some information related to what you can expect for next steps in the process. So with that being said, the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District is working to update our solid waste management plan. This will really be our roadmap and long-term vision that will outline how waste will be reduced and materials can be properly managed throughout the region. And the plan includes municipalities, electoral areas, and First Nation communities. So why do we need a solid waste management plan? So all regional districts in British Columbia are required to have a solid waste management plan. This is mandated through the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change Strategy, and it's regulated through the Environmental Management Act. The process is set out by the province and outlines specific criteria that a regional district must undertake in order to have an approved plan. The purpose of the plan, like I mentioned before, is to really outline future programs and infrastructure that we need to reduce the amount of waste going to landfill, to help us optimize our solid waste systems efficiencies, and to manage costs over time. So as I mentioned, the ministry has outlined a very specific set of criteria that we must follow in order for our plan to be approved. And there are 4 defined steps within this process. So the first step is to initiate the plan. And so this took place in 2023, last spring, when we officially kicked it off. So as part of this step, we initiated the plan and informed the ministry of our intent to undertake the planning process. From there, we recruited our advisory committee. So this is a group of outstanding individuals that individuals and community members from electoral areas, municipalities, rural and remote areas, First Nation communities. We have members from business sector and the education sector as well. We also had phase 1 of public engagement. So this happened during October and December of last year. We had a survey, a region-wide survey where feedback was generated on the priorities that the public wanted us to address through the plan. That took us to step 2, which was setting the plan direction, and this included developing our guiding principles. Our guiding principles really act as our guiding North Star and really help guide how decisions are made. I'll touch a little bit more on our guiding principles in a couple of slides ahead. Other key outputs of this step were really to set the goals and targets of the plan and develop a long list of potential options that have now turned into our draft strategies. So that brings us to step 3, which is evaluate the options. And this is where we currently are in the process. And we have developed 8 proposed strategies and are consulting the public on the strategies. So during this phase, we want to collect as much public support and feedback as we can as we continue to draft the plan. After this phase of engagement ends, the feedback will be summarized and incorporated, and we will report back to our advisory committee for them to consider the feedback and continue to develop our plan. The draft plan will be reviewed and brought back to the community for one last round of engagement prior to it going to the board for approval and to the ministry for final submission. And then step 4 is really around getting it approved and starting that implementation process. So just to expand on some of the key milestones to date are around our guiding principles. So they were developed by our advisory committee. They are very meaningful, they're relevant, and they really help inform the framework and guide decisions on the plan. Our goals and targets were developed to be specific, meaningful, and measurable, relevant and achievable, and within the plan's time frame, so the next 10 years. Engagement really helped inform priority areas that are important to our residents of all the communities. And the 8 strategies have been developed to really address the gaps and opportunities that will help guide the plan for implementation in the coming years. So as I mentioned, our guiding principles, this has been a really important piece of work that the advisory committee put together. We're using the New Chel, New Sacred principles as our framework for addressing respect, taking care of, and recognizing everything is one for the people and the land. The first one is Isak. This represents utmost respect. It speaks to personal and collective respect for our community and the people, the traditional knowledge and the natural world, the metaphysical world, and other people and communities. The second guiding principle, Uasak, refers to taking care of. In this context, it's about taking care of the present and future generations, as well as taking care of the self and resources provided by the land and the natural world. Ishsawak is the notion of interconnectedness, interdependence, and the reciprocal relationships between the people, the land, and the wider world in the physical, spiritual, and social sense. So moving on to our goals and targets for the plan, like I mentioned, these have been developed to support the guiding principles, and they really help us to measure the plan's success. So the first one is around social equity and local economy and providing inclusive, equitable, and accessible opportunities across all solid waste systems in programs in ways that provide local economic benefit through social procurement. The second goal is around environmental, and it's really just to avoid impacts from solid waste collection and disposal facilities that could negatively impact our local ecosystems. The third one is around education and to create effective and accessible education to all audience types to promote waste reduction and diversion services and programs. Economic. So this goal is around making financial responsible decisions using waste reduction and diversion initiatives to offset more costly disposal systems over time. As the advisory group put together the goals and the guiding principles, we've also come up with some targets. And it's really around reducing our waste generation to the 350 kgs per person per year. And this figure aligns with our provincial target by 2035. So the province has a goal for BC communities to reduce waste that's generated per person to that 350 kgs per person. And how that number is generated is calculated by the total amount of what we're disposing, and it's divided by the region's population. So as you're aware, we have the West Coast landfill, and we also have the Alberni Valley landfill. So these numbers are created based on the two different waste sheds. It also takes the total tonnage disposed, and it includes not just the waste that you're generating from your house, but it looks at IC&I, which is commercial, industry, and institutions, and it also looks at C&D sectors. So all of that tonnage information is combined and then divided by the population base in each waste shed. The draft strategies and actions that are included in our solid waste management plan that are out for engagement, like I've mentioned, the strategies really help us move towards reducing that number. So right now we're sitting at about 545 kgs per person per year. The BC average, my next slide here, is around 506. So the orange line there really shows you where we are comparative to our other British Columbia neighbors. And there's some obviously island-based communities as well. So we're not tracking too terribly, but our goal is to reduce that number to 350 kgs per person. Another really important point to make that I learned just this week being at this conference is that the majority of BC landfills have approximately 30 years left of life left to their landfills. So we're fortunate enough that we have 2 landfills within our regional district. And, you know, we have some years left, but when we look at the rest of the province only having, you know, around 30 years left to their landfills, that's a bit of a scary situation when we look at our future generations and what challenges they could be faced with. So taking action now and adding years to our landfill is so very important. So this slide here is a diagram that shows waste that is generated within our region. So it looks at the residential as well as commercial sectors. So that top figure, the gray zone, is really showing what is going to landfill. The bottom section is what is currently being diverted through the Sort and Go curbside cart program. And the solid waste management plan and the strategies that I'm going to go over on my next slide really aim to tackle that top section and divert more material there from heading to our landfills. So the 8 strategies that we've come up with, so with the foundation of the guiding principles and the goals and targets and the public priorities that we learned about during phase 1 of engagement, and with the advisory committee, we were able to identify where gaps and opportunities exist. As part of the work we've done with the advisory committee, we have visited both landfills. We've been to Bamfield and seen the transfer station. We've been to recycling depots and all the different solid waste facilities to really see where we need to provide better access or where the gaps exist so that we can address them within our strategies. The solid waste team has also worked on a tech memo document. This supports the strategies, and it really goes into the finer details of each strategy. So feel free to access that document, which is on the Let's Connect ACRD page, which I will speak to more towards the end of my presentation. So going over the strategies, we have 8. The first one is around education. I'm going to speak to these more, but I'm just going to quickly go over the 8 concepts. So education and behavior change programming, reuse and recovery centers and eco depots, business and institution zero waste programs, organic management infrastructure for remote and Indigenous communities, multi-stream diversion programs, construction and demolition material diversion, and then other material and product end-of-life management, and then residual management. So I'm gonna go over the strategies just a little bit more in detail, just to give you a better understanding of what they each mean. So strategy 1 is really our fundamental strategy. It's needed for strategies 2 through to 8. So without education, we really can't influence and change behaviors to promote awareness and the desire for people to participate in diversion practices. So with that power of education really helps inform behavior change. And all strategies 2 to 8, like I mentioned, really depend on a really strong education component. Strategy 2 looks at reuse and recovery centers and eco depots. So there's a need to improve the number and range of products that could be diverted from the waste stream by having better access to reuse and recycling. So this looks at our various communities, and it looks at how we can expand certain infrastructure so that we're promoting the reuse of products rather than them just going to landfill. So the best way to explain this concept is like a restore. Where if you've been to, our bigger centers like Nanaimo, you can go and buy all sorts of different items that have been donated for purposes of reuse. So on the West Coast, we know we have limited options for depot, recycle depot, recycling, as well as just reuse options in general. So we are looking at establishing some infrastructure and services more so on the West Coast. For the Alberni Valley, there are some services that do exist, so we're just looking at ways we can expand them rather than establishing like we need to do for the West Coast. And then looking at Bamfield and Salmon Beach, which are more remote communities, and looking how we can expand our options in these communities. So looking at best options and best practice approaches to update the transfer stations so that they are one-stop drop and shop, if you will, options. So this also could include organics, drop-off and processing as well. And then this also looks at our Indigenous communities and how we can help promote eco depots, which is something that's been very successful working with partnerships like Iswatag. Number 3, so this is the business, looking at the business sector. So the business sector and institutions are big waste generators. More than 60% of waste going to landfill is coming from our commercial and institutional sectors. So this strategy looks at ways to divert those materials through different policy mechanisms and regulations, and obviously providing support and community partnerships to make this strategy successful. Number 4 looks at establishing organics management infrastructure for remote and Indigenous communities. So this really ties in with strategy 2 that I briefly talked about, but looking at how over 30% of what we're putting in the garbage, it can be diverted as organic material. So looking at ways that we can establish organics management infrastructure. There's a lot of really neat technology out there for small remote communities. I'm actually at a conference right now where a lot of this subject matter is being talked about, and best practice approaches are being explored for small and remote communities, and how organics drop off and management can be handled. So looking at a drop-off solution, and then a solution for once that organic material is turned into compost, how we can use it for things like community gardens so that we're growing food in our remote communities where, food security sometimes is a bit of an issue. So that's strategy number 4. Strategy number 5 speaks to multi-stream diversion programs. So 20% of our remaining single-family households do not have access to diversion programs. So it's looking at finding potential options for how this could look for rural single-family households. We also know that there's a gap in multifamily, so apartment buildings and townhouses and stratas and trailer parks, looking at finding solutions so that multifamily homes have access to diversion services. It also looks at outdoor public spaces, especially in the West Coast where you have a lot of tourism happening. It would be great to see diversion options for outdoor public spaces, as well as events that are coming to our community, making sure that they're set up so that not everything is going into the garbage, that they have options to divert recyclables and organics as well. 6 looks at our construction and demolition waste. So when we look at, 60% of business of waste going to landfill is business, about 30% of that is construction and demolition. And we know the cost of building supplies is always going up. So the potential for us to be able to use construction and demolition waste that can be salvaged and repurposed into new building material is so very important. Or if it can be processed and turned into something else is definitely something that this strategy looks at implementing. So by, again, using policy tools in order to make this strategy successful is also something that will happen with this strategy. Number 7, I'm almost done, I promise. Number 7 is other material and end of life product management. So we look at programs in our EPR system, so things like paint and batteries that we can take to recycle depots at no cost. This is looking at other options for like hazardous waste material and a collection point for material that basically doesn't have a diversion option right now. And so the best one to represent this are things like hazardous waste and bulky items. So finding diversion opportunities for these materials. And lastly is residual management. And this is just a fancy way of saying managing our landfills properly so that anything that can't be diverted is going to the landfill and that we are maintaining our landfills as best we can with the different projects that we need to happen in order to keep our landfill around as long as possible. So we've got our 2 landfills, the West Coast and the AV. The AV we're looking at the moment, we don't have a long-term disposal option or an agreement with our Alberni Valley landfill. So we are collaborating with the Shot First Nation on that agreement. And then there's some capital works projects that are in the works for the West Coast landfill, just in order to keep it operational and again, make it more efficient so that we're keeping costs low. So with that being said, that is the quick version of what we've been up to, the solid waste management plan, the strategies that we're consulting on the public with. We have a survey at the moment. So if you see here, learn more at letsconnect.ca/SWMP. We have an online survey that we want the public to fill out. And basically the survey is more of a feedback form. So looking at the strategies, and we want to know which strategies you support. And if the public does not support them, just some feedback on as to why, one of these strategies may not, or they do definitely work for your community. We want to know the good, the bad, and the ugly of your thoughts on our proposed strategies. So with that being said, next steps, we are wrapping up engagement around November 20th. Like I mentioned, our solid waste committee will consider the feedback and incorporate that into the draft plan. And then before we go to submit the plan for final approval, that plan will be available for public engagement later in spring, summer 2025. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments at this point from the gallery? No?
No, don't think so.
Okay.
I think Veda has a question there. Sorry,
Hey.
guys.
Sorry. Go ahead. Veda?
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to comment that I really appreciate how well organized this is. I heard Jody, I was walking through the store and I heard her talking about the upcoming open houses and events. And I felt really proud about that. And just in terms of the difference it's made in the community, having the 3-stream, just walking through the community now, I don't see the casual just throwing of garbage on the ground that I used to see. So I think the awareness through this whole process has gone a long way to improve just the garbage in our community. So thanks to the team there.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Jody. Much appreciated. Any other comments? I know that, go ahead.
Sorry, if I may. Oh.
Yes.
Yeah, no, just following up. No, it was a great presentation, Jody, and thank you for that. And we're just reiterating that, we're open for feedback for quite a while. Everything that you've seen here, that covers, it's the full meal deal for the entire regional district, and it's looking at all of those gaps we've talked about in all of those different communities, how we can address those things. So in the case of Salmon Beach, for example, the feedback would be like, what do you see that is relevant for you? We're looking for those those inputs. So hopefully that brings a little bit of the context to the folks here.
Yeah, absolutely. I look forward. I think most of the committee and the residents of Salmon Beach will be looking forward to utilizing this 3-stream. Currently now we have a 2-stream, I think, and it's collectibles, cans and bottles and that sort of thing, and everything else goes into the containers. And we'd like to break that down even more. So that we can better utilize what is being tossed out, and we have to educate the community of Salmon Beach too with signage and sending out notes to everybody. So truly appreciate it. Thank you very much, Paula. Is there anything else? Okay. Any correspondence for action or information? Wendy?
Where did you go?
Sorry for the delay.
okay.
Nope.
Okay. Request for decision. This is with regards to the financial plan amendment. That the Salmon Beach Committee recommend that the ACRD Board of Directors approve a financial plan amendment for the Salmon Beach Transportation Capital Fund, increasing the budget for the interior road upgrades to $185,000 for 2024.
I motion that we do the. I mean,
I'll second it.
Yeah.
Seconded, moved by Ellen and seconded by Ken Lund. All those in favor? Approved. Thank you. Next item is request for a decision for the 2025 work plan. The Salmon Beach Committee confirmed that projects and priorities for Salmon Beach services will be considered for inclusion in the development of the overall ACRD 2025 work plan.
We agreed to all of this, right?
Can I just speak to this one before
Yes, please.
we move with the motion here?
Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you for that, Cal. And thank you for making the first report so efficient and quick for me. That was fantastic. So as we look towards the 2025 work plan, so the process for setting one for this year is similar to that which is occurring in all the other services within the Community Services Department. Where we're at right now is identifying projects based on the service needs and resources and requests that we've received through Ellen from the committee and from the members of Salmon Beach. What we're doing then, once we have the request, is identifying the necessary time, the budgetary resources and staff resources necessary for completion, and then kind of reviewing those projects as an overall holistic approach as to how it fits into the overall work plan for the ACRD and our staff. We've listed a pretty robust length of projects, apologies. I just wanted to say, as we have these are highlighted as those we want to take place in 2025. There's no guarantee that all of them will at the end make the list. Once we go through and kind of look through the time necessary and the budgetary means necessary to complete, we will come back to the committee upon the draft creation of the financial plan that will have the work plan laid out within it. So there will be more review from the committee as we move forward and as we move towards finalization of the projects. We kind of differentiated the projects within this report between those ongoing and somewhat operational projects, and then some of the newer projects. So for instance, the ongoing operational, we have the road maintenance contract that is expiring in May of this year. We did, within the first contract, we had a 1 year plus 2 1-year extensions. And so that was already 3 years ago, which feels like it was just yesterday. So that will be ongoing in 2025. As discussed, the remainder of the interior road upgrades, the sale of the old biosolid pumping truck, the purchase and installation of security cameras now that the ACRD policy is now in place. And then an ongoing alder removal plan. So we had the alder removal plan upped from a typical annual budget of 6,000 to 10,000 in 2024. And we are going to move it forward as 10,000 and just create every fall, do a more robust knockdown of the alders in the community to make sure that we stay on top of them. And then the last item was the repairs to the fence around the compound. This includes the barbed wire and some of those chain link. And then the other items we dove into were the AED purchase and installation for the community. And I know this was highlighted as one of the highest priority projects for the members. Kind of where we're at right now is trying to investigate which service this will fit into definitively. So that's kind of what we're looking to do now. So once we do that, I don't see any issue with this item at all. The fire suppression committee and the suggestion of the creation of this, I think this is one where a little bit more of a investigation, discussion will be necessary. We have to look at some things such as what service do we need to create an entirely new service in order to direct any funds towards this. What are the liabilities for this service? I know it's a pseudo volunteer fire department. So we just want to make sure that if it's created, if money is directed towards it, that the liability is discussed at a more deeper level. So this will include our fire services team here. So it is anticipated, that as we will need a bit of a more fuller project plan for this, there will be significant time necessary in order to discuss the feasibility. I don't think it's going to be, let's just jump into it and go. It's going to be a more lengthy process up front. Other items, of course, include the examination of the Snake River trailer to see if we can salvage it or if it just needs to be replaced. If it needs to be replaced, what would it be replaced for, etc. We want to do an investigation of the existing culverts within the community. It's been communicated that some are beginning to rust, so we just want to put together a plan for when and if they will eventually need to be replaced. And then we're awaiting a quote to install a drainage ditch above the gazebos, just to allow for some of that water that is saturating that area annually and for most of the year to be directed elsewhere. So from here, with the approval of the committee, we'll take the next steps towards finalizing the work plan, creating the draft financial plan from there. And of course, as we move through that process, ongoing communications with the committee will take place. So with that being said, and with my spiel being over, again, thank you for allowing me to be short on the first one. Happy to take any questions from the committee, and I apologize for saying investigate, as I was just told I did 10 times.
So just back to the fire suppression committee investigation, the context of this situation is that they're not structural firefighters.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that is in the intent or the direction they want to go. Basically,
Yeah.
what it is for the forest and preventing the fire from extending beyond where it is. So there would be no, for the most part, no structural firefighting involved at all. So I think that that'll be clarified when the committee discusses with Brent. As far as any of the other issues, is there any comments by anybody that with regards to the work plan? No, everybody's reviewed it. Okay. So I did skip over financial plan amendment. Was there anything that anybody was given an opportunity to review that? I didn't hear anything from anybody before, so nothing.
No.
Okay. So getting back to where we're at now, the work plan is done. Is there any other reports coming in?
We need a motion for this work plan.
Yep.
I motion we accept it as presented.
Seconded. Okay. Ellen and Ron, thank you very much. No other reports coming in? Any late business? Wendy?
Storm.
Oh,
Go ahead, Eddie.
wait, there is one item that Eddie wanted to talk about, and that was the flooding and issues at Salmon Beach. Go ahead, Eddie.
Yeah, and thank you, and through the chair. I just wanted to discuss the storm of the century that came through over this past weekend. I think as we move forward, this could be something that is a little bit more prominent, and that we do need to be aware of, and move forward with that in mind. Of course, as Kel alluded to, there was significant damage caused within the community. We had a number of the ditches back up, as you all know, and I know I don't need to get into all this, driveways being an overrun, and then the slope at the junction of 3rd, Front Street in Saratoga gave way. We had an engineer on site today, a geotech on there doing an assessment of the slope, making sure that it's stable and safe. So he's going to do from here, he did a site review. Now we'll be doing a desktop analysis, summary of his findings. They say it'll take a week or so to get this information back to us. In the meantime, and I know we have some of the materials that are down in the ditch, we're not going to remove those until we get this assessment back. So just a heads up on that. I will be visiting, I'm going to meet with Al tomorrow, and we're going to come up with a prioritization plan for the repair of the works within the community as necessary. I know there were some driveways, especially up and down 4th, that pretty much all washed away. We're going to be getting in contact with BC Hydro because I believe that's where their main line runs up, and we do have a shallower culvert there due to that. So before we do any of the works, we do need to engage Hydro and see what we can do there. This isn't the first time that has happened, and I was just become aware of that this weekend. So it would be good to, create a plan moving forward so it doesn't continually happen, especially if we assume that we're going to get this amount of rainfall more frequently as we move forward. As of now, we look at some of the ditches that did back up. It was brought to my attention as well that some of the ditches or some of the culverts and the driveways had screens installed in them. At the opening and exit of the culvert, which could have allowed for the backing up of the culvert a little bit more quicker. We're going to, I think, work towards removing and ensuring that all culverts are free of screens to allow material to flow through them as necessary. We also was brought to our attention, there was some potentially private cutting that was concluded prior, and materials were left in ditches. So it's items like this that we just want to ensure we get more communications out to the community, out to members of the community about the impacts items such as this can create. And then, get a letter out to residents, I think, regarding the culverts and ensuring we don't have screens. So once I meet with Al, we put together that plan. We'll communicate that, Ellen, through you to the committee. We'll be aware. Budget wise, we had a few things on the books for the remainder of this year. We do have significant room still remaining, and that's why we kind of don't do a whole lot of the maintenance ahead of fall, because we want to make sure that for instances such as this, we do have room in the budget. So we have room in the ditching budget. We have room in the road maintenance budget to ensure that we do get this work completed. So happy to take any questions on that. I just wanted to have that conversation, or get that conversation going. I'm sure there's been a lot of it taking place there already.
A little bit.
Go ahead, Ron. Any comments?
No, just a little bit of conversation.
Yeah.
I know Friday, I think from about 4 o'clock till 9 o'clock, the phone didn't really stop. So
Yeah.
I told Adam he couldn't have picked a better time to leave.
Yeah, Adam went on holidays, lucky him.
He was actually camped out in his living room saying, "I'm in Saskatchewan."
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for that, Eddie. I think everybody's aware of what's going on, and the issue around the one culvert that BC Hydro put in, are they responsible for that culvert, or what's the story? No?
I don't believe we'll ever, we can have the conversation, we can ask for some assistance, but
Yeah.
I sense difficulties there.
Okay. Anything else? I don't know. I've got, I don't know if Jill didn't make it yet, so well, I guess we'll hear from her anyway.
There's no questions or comments from the public.
Okay, thank you. So nobody participating in the Zoom or anything like that, or any emails, I guess, eh?
Nope. Nothing.
Okay, thank you. And we have any other comments by anybody? No?
I move we adjourn.
I never asked you for that, Ron. Are you impatient?
It's his favorite thing to do.
Seconded by,
There's nothing
no,
else on the agenda.
I have one question that was brought up when we had our little meeting with the committee. Exterior grading. Are we still paying forestry to do that 5 kilometers or 6 kilometers from Macoa to our gate? Are we still having to pay them?
Yeah, so excellent question, and through the chair. So not for next year. We did pay for the previous year. The ministry has received a grant that talks to improving access to Indigenous communities. So we will not be paying in the upcoming year. And I believe that will kind of be on a year-by-year basis. But we will not have to allocate I believe it was $21,000 and change that we paid annually for the grading to take place 18 times a year. So, yeah, not next year.
Okay.
Thank you, Eddie.
Yeah.
yay!
Yeah.
And
Get
thank
back
you,
in your
Wendy.
pocket.
Thanks,
Okay,
everybody.
now you get.
Now I move we adjourn.
Yes, I got that. Seconded by Ken Lund.
Oh yeah.
All those in favor? Cheers. Thanks. Have a good day.
Perfect.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Paul.
you.
All right. Bye-bye.